Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. I think Brian's a smart guy, but I'll say we, as a group, we've gotten smarter. Now that would
Well,
be
I still don't know where to look. So
that
I'm
would
talking
be
for me.
slamming Matt, and that wouldn't be fair either. But Tim Newton joins us for Segment 2, and Tim needs no introduction, but the voice of Purdue football, and one of the great people to work with. I get the chance to sit next to him for football games. A lot of fun to do that, and the professional approach that you bring. And we'll start with a challenging question, or at least an emotionally challenging question. The passing of Joe McConnell. I think the thing that's always been impressive to me about you is that's important to you. Not only your relationship with Joe, but the seat that you're sitting in is an important one. There have been some great ones that have been through that, all the way back to John DeCamp and Henry Rosenthal, Larry Clisby on down the line. It's an important seat for you.
Well, and I've had connections with all those guys you mentioned because John DeCamp was my mentor when I got to Purdue. He was still working at WBAA at the time and took the time to take a 17 or 18-year-old kid and try to teach him some of the ropes. I worked with Larry Clisby at WASK, going back 30-some years ago. Henry Rosenthal hired me back to Lafayette. And then, of course, Joe McConnell, who was another mentor to me. Joe had been battling a lot of health issues over the last few years, but he never lost his enthusiasm for Purdue sports. He was up to date in Purdue sports. And to show you what a sports fan Joe was, this is probably 2 or 3 weeks before his passing. He had been in the hospital, and then he'd gone to a rehab center, basically, and that's where he spent most of his last few days. He called his wife from the hospital at, I want to say, midnight. Now, usually, if you're in the hospital and you get a phone call as a family member at midnight, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
He wanted to know if the Cubs had won that night. And Susie, who's, God bless Susie.
Not a sports fan.
Not a big sports fan, put up with a lot with Joe. Said, Joe, can't this wait until the morning? No, I got to know right now. So she went and found out. I think they had won, so he went to bed happy that night. But Joe was a real sports fan. He loved his family, the Boilermakers, and the Cubs. Number one, I'm sure, was in that order. I'm not sure how the Boilermakers and Cubs played out, but those were the two loves of his life.
Yeah, no question. You look at that experience and heading into a new year, just to painting the brush of what you think you will see come Thursday night. We're going to have a crowd that's going to be excited. We know that.
I do think it'll be an excited crowd. I don't know if it'll be a full crowd,
Don't think it will be.
but I think it'll be loud.
Yeah.
I think that the students in particular will have all day to prepare for the game, so that should make it pretty entertaining.
All that Cranard stuff they'll be doing.
Absolutely, they'll be cramming right up until kickoff. I think you'll see the same style. I don't think Jeff is going to change his spots or change the way that he approaches things offensively. You're going to see more trick plays. I think he would like to throw the ball down the field a little bit more than he has, but that's going to depend on how much time the guys up front can give. Nick Holt's got a lot of new faces on defense, but that's not going to change the style they play. They're going to continue to play aggressive, and I just have a feeling it's going to be a very exciting football season. I don't have no idea wins and losses. I saw the last segment. I think if Purdue can go back to a bowl game in 2018, regardless of what bowl and what record, it's a successful season because that will continue the momentum. And if you look at what's in the pipeline that you could potentially sign this fall and guys that they're already talking to for future years, you've got a chance to really go upward pretty quickly with the trajectory. This, I think, is the transition year, particularly with what you lost on defense.
Right. Yeah, I think what's at stake this season is that momentum. I mean, everything has changed in the last year, from fan engagement to recruiting, and the world we live in, that going from 7 wins to something less than 7 wins, you know how that looks, even if it's not necessarily substantive regression. That's the world we live in. However it looks is reality. And momentum is a funny thing because is it harder to get or is it harder to keep? I guess that's kind of, what we find out this season, but it's really important to Purdue's program right now, and it's really important to the future of the program, and this is a really big year. You didn't expect this to be this big a year because you didn't expect the personnel losses after year one to be as significant as they turned out to be, because I don't think anybody expected so much from that defense right away. But obviously Purdue has a lot of important pieces to replace from last season.
Yeah, you get a chance to be around pretty up close and personal with Jeff Brom, and you've worked around a number of coaches. Interesting guy in terms of how he approaches things, and kind of that aw shucks, but he goes from aw shucks to damn serious in a hurry on the practice field, not necessarily in the radio booth, but impressions of him, and it's a what you see is what you get, but what do you...
It is a what you see is what you get, because I think he's very authentic. I think Jeff Brom does not put on a facade. What you see on the sidelines, what you see in those clips where he's throwing chairs, that is his personality. It's kind of a little bit with him, especially in his pregame talks, I think a little bit of a controlled chaos, where he's got an idea of what he wants to say, but until the words come out from his mouth, I'm not sure he knows exactly what he's going to say, but the message that he wants to get out every time is pretty clear. He's great to work with. That shouldn't be a surprise, I think, to anybody who's seen him. He's very open, and I think he's the right guy for the right situation. Given what he had to inherit, he's put together a great staff. He's working for a great boss. I think he and Mike Bobinski work very well together, and
that's true.
I think everything is right now on the up and up.
Yeah, you look at that, and that gives you reason for hope down the road. All right, Northwestern comes in, and that is a team. If I look at last year and I say, what were the two games I really felt Purdue did not play well in? Rutgers, Northwestern wasn't. They got better late in the second half, but they got down 20-0 at one time. Tell me what Pat Fitzgerald does a great job there. They make you beat them in certain ways.
They make you beat them, and talking to Jeff on the radio show earlier this week, and it's really the same thing he said last year during the season. Northwestern wins football games because week after week after week they play harder than you do.
Yeah.
They just do. And when Pat goes to the practice field and he goes to the game situation, he knows that he doesn't have to worry about coaching effort.
Yeah.
He knows his guys are going to be ready to play. He's got a lot of his defense back from last year. Patty Fisher, a real anchor in the middle, and on the offensive side, he's got his quarterback back. He's got most of his offensive line back. Now, there would be some question marks in terms of who he's going to throw to and who he's going to hand the ball off to. But Northwestern will be a handful on opening night, no question.
Yeah, and I'll ask you, it is a thing where you open up and you look at where the Boilermakers have to be from the get-go. And I'll start with you, Brian, on culture of program. I'm not going back to where they were, but there's still a bit of that. There isn't. I think Jeff Brom's done a great job of erasing doubt and giving confidence for the most part. But you're still only a couple years removed from that. It's not totally out of the program, or do you think it is?
It can't turn over that quickly. I think last year was important from a tone-setting perspective, but I think it probably takes a little bit more time. I mean, that's why this season is so big. I mean, these guys had no success for years prior to Jeff Brom coming in. They won last year. I think this is a big season to see how that is processed from the top of the roster to the bottom of the roster. I will use Northwestern as a comparison on two different fronts here. Northwestern's basketball team went to the NCAA tournament for the first time last year. They spent the whole summer getting told how awesome that was, how great they were, and they will tell you now. They actually came out and admitted this during the season that they didn't handle success well. They took things for granted. Their season blew up on them. And that's the trap. That there are no red flags about Purdue dealing with that the wrong way. But that is the situation that you always wonder about in a situation like this, that all of a sudden these guys who were doormats and punchlines for the better part of a decade, all of a sudden are hearing all these positive things and expectations have changed, and it's a different deal. The other comparison with Northwestern is, I think, to what you were talking about before. Northwestern is sort of the model Purdue is building toward, that program built on a certain type of kid, with a certain type of coaching, with a certain type of expectation level, a certain type of effort level that can be expected every single week, and the sort of team that wins with all that little stuff and not necessarily the big stuff. The big stuff is good too, and Purdue is building toward a lot of that big stuff with the offense it's putting together and so on and so forth. But it's that little stuff that Brom has really brought more so than the big stuff to this point, and that's where they have to keep going.
Yeah.
When you talk about setting the culture, you go back to the Joe Tiller years, and I can say this as the great Stuart Schweigert has stepped in. He's going to be on the next segment. The only thing that Joe Tiller did wrong in his tenure here was he had too much success too soon.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, if you take all the 12 seasons he was here, and you arrange them in a different order, and take those couple losing seasons first, and then the 6s and 6s and your Sun Bowl trips, and you finish it up with the Rose Bowl, every street in West Lafayette would be named after Joe Tiller. But it was a little bit out of sequence. Jeff has the advantage now. If he started. I mean, you took a program that was down below the table. Now you've got it here. You got a lot of room to go up to the ceiling right now. Whereas, and you were talking again last segment about what, do you have to get to 8 or 9 wins? I don't think necessarily you have to do that, but you have to keep the momentum going. You have to keep the positive feeling that fans have about the program, that recruits have about the program, that this is going to be an exciting place to play. This is a style that I want to play in, and you're going to come to Ross-Ade Stadium every week, and it's going to be full, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. And I would argue that program was a lot further down heading into 2017 than it was heading into 1996.
Oh, no question.
There's
No question.
No great analysis there from that standpoint. I think that's the thing that will be about as clear as you could make it. All right, Brian, defensively, if you're going to name one thing that you're going to watch for the Purdue's got to do well, maybe not defensively. What is that? What's the first thing?
Defensively,
Just to get off in those first 4 games to get off the deck the way you want to do. What do they have to do? And I don't mean to limit it to defensively for both of you, but I'll start with you, Brian.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it comes down to a lot of the same stuff as last year. I think obviously Purdue can't beat itself. You could say that about any team in any football game. You can't turn the ball over. But I think Purdue's margin for error is still such that you can't. It's just non-negotiable. You cannot do it. I think, the downfield passing game, Jeff Brom talks about, I know that's oversimplification. Hey, we have to make big plays. Of course you have to make big plays. Everybody wants to make big plays. But when you look at what Brom says about we have to start this season like we finished last, what was the common denominator about those last 3 games, Iowa, Indiana, Arizona? Their ability to throw the ball up the field. The fact that we're sitting here saying, oh my God, who's going to replace Anthony Mahangu is mind-blowing.
Yes, it is.
In
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
retrospect.
Comment allez-vous?
Yeah.
I have no
Rubbed
idea
off.
what you just said.
Mahangu, though.
But that changed Purdue, and that's what they have to do this year. Anthony Mahangu is gone, and Purdue has to be able to, drop back, throw the ball up the field, and open things up a little bit. That's on the receivers to be better than they've been, but that's on the protection, which I think this is the first year in forever you go into a season thinking, hey, we have a chance to have an okay offensive line. Ordinarily, it's this open wound that you've thrown Band-Aids over. But I think they have a chance to have a good offensive line. I think they have, obviously, stable quarterback play, have to be able to throw the ball down the field. On defense, you just need to stay competitive against the run, do better against the pass. Part of doing better against the pass, obviously, and I think I've listed everything in football at this
Tim, you can
point.
just be quiet at this point.
The pass rush is a big part of
Yeah.
stopping the pass. And right now, you don't know if Purdue has that. You'd like to not have to blitz your best player and your strong safety when you have to get somebody after the quarterback. That's what Purdue did a lot last year. You'd like to not have to do that this year. I don't know if they can or not.
Yeah.
Pass rush is important.
Yeah.
Offensively, I think the key is to get more explosive big plays, and you talked a lot about Rondale Moore. It's unfair to hype a kid before he's played his first college game, but I can't remember. This is starting my 5th decade watching Purdue football. I can't remember a player like him. Vinny Sutherland had great straight line speed.
Yeah.
Vinny was pretty quick. This kid's a lot quicker. And you watch him, when he plants his foot in the ground, he can go from 0 to 60 like you can't believe and shift direction. Where that's going to show up, it's going to show up offensively, but Purdue was terrible last year in kick returns.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he's got a chance to make a real big impact, especially in year 1. Now, we're going to have new kickoff rules. It's going to be interesting to see how. And I asked Jeff earlier this week about what if they had decided what they're going to do, because the new rule this year, if kickoff, if you fair catch the ball inside the 20-yard line, they bring it out to the 25. Because you saw last year a lot of teams are starting to kick the ball high but keep it in play to try to pin you deep. There's a safety element.
Yeah,
I think
no question.
eventually what's going to happen is eventually we're not going to have kickoffs.
Yeah.
Whether that happens next year, 5 years, but at some point it's going to go away. But the question now is, if you get the big sky kick that goes down to the 1-yard line, are you going to fair catch it? Or are you going to let Rondale Moore try to zigzag his way through the field? So it'll be interesting to see not only how they play it, but on the other side, are they going to try to kick the ball out of the end zone with Spencer Evans, or are you going to kick the ball and see if we can get it inside the 5 and see if we can pin them deep.
It's going to be an interesting storyline to watch. All right, Tim Newton's day job, he does not sit and think of football all day long or New York Yankees baseball.
As
They're
far as you
close.
know.
It's all close. But obviously, the Director of Communications with the Krannert School, and I can vouch, at least having his son graduated from there, that it is a fantastic place. But you have a great event that you always are nice enough to include us in, which is the Krannert Leadership Series, and the event October the 11th at the Indiana Roof Ballroom in Indianapolis. Tell me about that, because you've got 4 pretty dynamic people on the dais for that.
Yeah, this will be our 19th year for the event, and it gives us a chance to honor some Krannert distinguished alumni. We also partner with the Boiler Business Exchange
Which
in
has been a
Indianapolis.
really good thing, yeah.
They have a Business Hall of Fame, but this year our theme is a Night of Champions, and so we're going to have a panel discussion with Athletic Director Mike Bobinski, with Yukari Figs, who was a member of the 1999 National Championship Women's Team, with Robbie Hummel, who I think we're all familiar with Robbie, now working for BTN and ESPN, and with Matt Light, who's going to come back and talk about his experiences not only with Purdue but with the New England Patriots. So tickets are available. It is a fundraiser, so any net proceeds from the event go toward Krannert scholarships. You can go to our website, krannert.purdue.edu, and get your ticket. Should be a great night, and we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's always a great event. Tim is still driving on I-465 to pick up Bill Russell from 19 years ago.
That'll be another story for another time.
Yeah,
that was year 1, and we had a little bit of a weather issue.
Oh, it was unbelievable. But I think I've been to almost all of them, and it's been really, really great. All right, we're going to take a short break and bring in that legendary Stuart Schweigert, and we'll talk a number of things about Purdue football and his football life, etc., in the final segment of Golden Black Live.